My fellow Americans, as you are now well aware, the events that transpired today are unprecedented in our nation's history. The U.S. dollar has essentially collapsed because our foreign creditors have refused to buy dollar-denominated debt at any price. We have several important issues to discuss this evening, but I want to first make it clear that these events are not the result of one or two presidential terms, nor the result of just a handful of congressional decisions. These problems have been systemic in U.S. policy for decades, and I'd like to take a minute to explain the origin of today's collapse so we are all on the same page moving forward. You see, a little more than 40 years ago, the value of the U.S. dollar was tied directly to the price of gold. In other words, you could show up at a bank with your dollars and exchange them for gold. But on August 15, 1971, Republican President Richard Nixon severed that tie, and by 1973, the value of the dollar fluctuated freely against other world currencies. Since then, it's been a bumpy ride, with wild swings in the value of the U.S. dollar, both up and down. But in roughly the past decade, the value of our currency, the U.S. dollar, has basically been in steep decline. In early 2011, the International Monetary Fund issued a stern warning that we as Americans would face a severe shock if we could not get our debt under control. Despite our best efforts, the situation has gotten much worse than anyone in my administration could have anticipated. I am sorry to report I could not do anything to stop this crisis. The extent of this collapse was simply beyond our capabilities. All U.S. stock markets will be closed for at least the remainder of this week, and all U.S. banking institutions will be closed for the rest of the week as well. You will not be able to withdraw money, write checks, or access safety deposit boxes. We don't yet know when the markets or the banks will reopen. In addition, because the U.S. dollar is now basically worthless, the prices for basic goods and services in America, which were already climbing rapidly over the past few years, have recently jumped off the charts. Prices for nearly everything have skyrocketed versus the dollar. Because our federal government has to do some major reconfiguring, for the foreseeable future, all non-essential government services will come to an immediate halt, and even many critical services will operate on a drastically reduced basis. Mail service, for example, will operate just once a week. Hospitals will be accepting emergency patients only, and the government's food program for lower-income Americans will not be accepted for the next 7 days. As drastic as these steps may seem, they are necessary because we simply must get our fiscal house in order. We must ensure the stability of the U.S. dollar. Failing to do so could be catastrophic for our country's future. I also want to make it clear, for Americans who do not have necessary supplies to last until the banks and other financial institutions reopen, we have arranged more than 150 temporary shelters nationwide, where you will find food, water, and emergency medical care.
Every man cannot have his way in all things. Without this mutual disposition, we are disjointed individuals, but not a society. History is scattered with the stories of those who held fast to rigid ideologies and refused to listen to those who disagreed. But those are not the Americans we remember. We remember the Americans who put country above self and set personal grievances aside for the greater good. We remember the Americans who held this country together during its most difficult hours, who put aside pride and party to form a more perfect union. That's who we remember. That's who we need to be right now. The entire world is watching. So let's seize this moment to show why the United States of America is still the greatest nation on earth. Not just because we can still keep our word and meet our obligations, but because we can still come together as one nation. Thank you, God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
In what could still be the middle of a tough fight from the East Room and the White House, we heard the president just there toward the end say the entire world is watching. He said people might have voted for divided government. They did not vote for dysfunctional government. And he wants this to get fixed not just for 6 months.